Good evening. I'm Rabbi Mike Harvey. Welcome back to the Adults Table, where we delve deep into ancient narratives to find some fresh insights.
And I'm Ryan, your co host and fellow biblical enthusiast. Here at the Adults Table, we're about challenging traditional interpretations and uncovering the hidden layers in ancient stories.
Yes, we are. And
Yeah,
last week, we had so much fun unpacking the Tree of Life
that was
motif,
good.
exploring a rich tapestry from the Garden of Eden to Inanna and the Halupa tree, which I actually learned about, which is really cool. And we were able
Oh,
to
well,
trace
thank you.
its evolution across culture and times. Really fun.
I'm really happy to hear that you learned some stuff. It was a
Yeah.
fascinating trek through the roots and branches of human storytelling. See what I did there?
Yes, it was. And speaking of storytelling, we are going to be charting a different kind of narrative course this week, the flood motif, or as we've dubbed it, WAP, wet ancient pluvials. We will, that's so amazing. We will dive through how these divine deluge stories have morphed and been reinterpreted over millennia.
So it sounds like we're about to make a splash, would you say?
Absolutely. Grab your buckets and your mops and settle in at the adults table. Woo
There's some
woo.
floods on this earth. There's some floods.
The Adults Table. Theological conversations uncensored.
Welcome back,
Welcome.
everybody. This is
Woo
awesome. It's our
woo.
third episode.
It
Our
is.
third episode. We
And it
did it.
was
We
last.
did it. Three
Woo
times a
woo.
charm
That's
or
right.
something.
Exactly.
Something like that. I don't
So
know.
we'll see, right? So last time we really did dive into some of these Near Eastern legends and other goddesses and gods, Asherah, Ishtar, and Nana, and then found how they made their way into the Israelite Tree of Life motif.
Right. That was so cool for me to be able to kind of present to a rabbi. Like that's kind of weird, but I enjoyed that. I think that's going to be good for me to kind of push my boundaries because I've just been out here on these internets talking to myself for a long time. So I think it's great to have a partner here and you're helping me to gain tools that I can now have in my wheelhouse. I can whip them out anytime I'm going to read literature, any kind of literature, really, even if it's a cookbook,
Right? As we
and
know.
ask myself like pertinent questions. I love that. I appreciate that you're helping me to not only just grow as a human, but to be more biblically literate. So thank you. This is
Oh, thank
awesome.
you. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, my goal has always been to give people those tools in their toolbox to be able to open up the
Hmm.
Bible or any other story with a little bit more um, just confidence.
Yeah,
So
I could use the confidence. Not even gonna
and
lie.
that's the truth is like you should be opening these stories with some good tools and some good confidence. So um, once you understand and get this idea of the Near Eastern legends and things like that, and how they've been adapted over time, you'll see that in lots of motif adaptations, including the one that we're talking about tonight, the Israelite adaptation is just one of many, and it's just the one you've heard of because it's
Yeah.
this is Israelite mythology. Whereas if you were in Babylonia or Mesopotamia, that would have been your mythology, and so that's how mythology typically works. You don't typically read other people's mythology, you know your own, and
Mm.
so what happens when you start to read other people's mythology and they look stunningly similar to yours and they predate yours. So
Oops.
that's yeah,
Oopies.
that's a wonderful pill to try to swallow, and a great way to sort of ask some very cool questions. And remember
Definitely.
that we are what we're talking about here, as we have been for the last two classes, is about the idea of what we call intertextuality, meaning texts that literally are interacting with each other. How does a text interact with one another? Well, through genres and motif and literary trope, meaning that one text interacts with another text because it sees certain plot elements, certain tropes, certain aspects of it that it likes and takes it and makes its own, and then that keeps happening and over again. And
Right.
so, as we know, there was no copyright law or remixes or anything like that back then. It was just, hey, free for all. We're going to do this,
And it was anonymous.
and it was all anonymous writing, right? Anonymous writing was the way of the ancient Near East, as we've talked about, right? As long as it got read, great. And so nobody cared if you were like, wait a minute, this sounds kind of like Gilgamesh. No one would care about that. It's just sort of like, oh, cool, this is ours now.
Sounds
So
familiar.
exactly, this is ours now, and so
Yoink.
yeah, exactly. They sort of yoinked it out, and well, I think that a lot of people I think, have heard of the Epic of Gilgamesh. I think a lot of people have not heard of the Epic of Atrahasis, and
No.
both of these are at least contain within their epic poetry a flood motif, and they actually predate the Noah story. And later this evening, I'm going to show them to you in a synoptic way, side by side, using these motival elements so that you can see them side by side. Because sometimes it's hard to you read a whole thing, Atrahasis is long, and then you read Gilgamesh, like, I think I remember this was sort of whatever.
Oh
But if you
yes.
side by side, organized that way, that's for you to really understand it in that way. So that's the plan for tonight, is to go over a couple flood epics, read a little bit of them so that you can get a feel for the epic poetry. We're not going to read all of it, obviously, because
It's a lot.
it's a lot. I mean, if you really want to read all the tablets of Atrahasis and the whole story of Gilgamesh, it's great.
Yeah.
And Gishtim and all that, it's great, but it's not easily done and taught about in an hour. So
Yeah,
yeah,
no. We're not that good.
right. So why don't we pull up our
Oh, pull up. Yes,
thing.
absolutely. Let's do that. Let me pull us out of here. And I'll pull this up. Well, I say I'm going to pull. Oh, wait, hold
There
on.
we
Wrong
go.
button. Wrong button. There we go. We got it. We got
All
it.
right. So we talked about all this front stuff, and all you have to do is watch episode 1 and 2, and you'll see how much we are following this line of motif adaptation and genre adaptation and intertextuality. That's really where we've started this series. And so if you're not sure with what I'm talking about here, it's very much explained in episode 1 and then used practically in episode 2. So we're going to use those tools that we have learned again, and we're going to put them to use in practicality here tonight. So if we scroll up a little bit, we can read a little bit about Atrahasis. Scroll down, sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay.
Scroll down. There we go. Okay.
There we go.
So this is a Mesopotamian account. It is dated about 1700 to 1600 BCE, which is really old.
Old AF.
Old AF. And the fact that it even has a name is sort of rare. Writings written in this way typically didn't have a title, right? And so apparently this one stood out. And it was written down during the reign of Amisaduqa, the king of Babylon, 1702 to 1682 BCE. It's on 8 column tablets, with each column having about 55 lines. And it is attributed to an author, Ipikaya, but not necessarily how, by himself. It was compiled and arranged and all this other stuff.
Mm,
But if you are able to see it, you'll see just how broken it is and how little we have of it. But considering what we do have, we got a great look into epic poetry from this long ago, from 1700 to 1600 BCE, which is a long, long time ago to have something in
right.
writing, let alone enough that we can see a great deal of it. Obviously, it's 8 tablets. The flood epic that we're talking about occurs in tablets 2 and 3. And so I think what we'll do is if we go to,
Scroll.
let's start at let plant life right at the top of that page there.
Oh,
Yeah.
right there. Okay.
Yeah. And maybe read like, I don't know, that paragraph and the other paragraph, I think.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, since I'm teaching,
Ooh.
read.
I can do that, teacher. Okay. Let plant life to feed them be scarce. Above, let Adad withhold his rain. Below, let the flood not rise from the deep. Let the wind blow and parch the ground. Let the clouds thicken, but only drop drips. Let the fields lessen their yields. Let Nisaba seal up her breast. And Lil opened his mouth to speak and addressed the assembly of all the gods. Come now, let us take on an oath to bring a flood. Anu swore first, and Lil swore. His son swore with him. Enki opened his mouth and addressed the gods, his brothers. Why will you bind me with an oath? Am I to lay hands on my own people? Am I to give birth to a flood? That is the task of Enlil. The gods commanded total destruction, and Lil committed an evil act against the people.
Thank
Oof.
you. So you're starting to see right away the names of some of the gods already. You're seeing a pantheon that is obviously introduced in tablet 1, but in tablet 2 and 3 we're starting to see that there is some disagreement. There's an assembly. Certain gods do certain things. These gods in Mesopotamia have regrets. They have problems. They have, they're certainly not omnipotent or omniscient. These are very much like Greek gods and those sorts of ideas. If we go to
I saw my
um,
honey pie in there.
yeah,
My honey
yeah,
pie, I
heck,
adored.
heck yeah. If you
Heck
go to the
yeah, I
bottom of that
did.
page,
Okay.
um, yeah, perfect. Okay,
Oh,
too far, way too far.
way
You're
too
losing
far.
control.
Hello.
You're losing control. Page
Up
3
at
is
top.
what we want.
Page 3. What page am I? Oh, there we go. I went way too far. Holy
That's what I'm
Lord.
saying.
I just was going cray cray.
So the bottom of page 3. Yeah, perfect. Okay. So right at he sent his family on board,
Hmm.
uh, and read that, and then the first paragraph maybe on page 4, the next foot. Yeah.
Okay. He sent his family on board. They ate and they drank, but he himself kept going in and out. He could neither sit nor squat because his heart was broken and he was spewing bile. The
Oh.
aspect of the weather altered as Adad roared in the clouds. When he heard the noise made by Adad, pitch was brought for him to caulk his door. He loves that caulk. After he had
Mhm.
barred his door, Adad was roaring in the clouds. The winds became ferocious as he rose to sever the hawser and set the boat adrift.
So we're
Hauser?
seeing one. The family is on the boat. They are sealing
Right.
up the boat. The storm is coming. And then we read later, the flood sets in. We're seeing, you might notice in the middle of page 4 for how long the flood goes on: 7 days, 7 nights. Yes, the whole thing was 7, predates
Mm,
the Torah.
wow.
All of that stuff, right? So that's just a little bit of what we see here and there. You're going to see some of the big motival aspects again when we're looking at them synoptically. But I wanted to give you a little bit of a look into the mind of the Mesopotamian.
A
Um,
taste.
it's right, a little taste of that, a little
Little
taste of
tasty
their
taste.
WAP. So, so moving on to Babylonian WAP. Um, if we go to
Fuck.
page 5, yep, there you go.
I
Okay,
love those pluvials. Oof.
yep, they're pluvials. That's right. Um, so first of all, Gilgamesh is a long epic thing, very much like Homer, like very, very well known. The ideas of Utnapishtim, Gilgamesh, Uruk, all these amazing characters, these adventures that they go on. If you haven't read at least some of the Epic of Gilgamesh,
Oh, you got to.
you have to, or if you haven't been forced to in middle school or high school, like you should, because it's beautiful, it's exciting, it's if you like the Iliad and the Odyssey, that sort of stuff, this is very similar. It predates it, of course,
Yeah.
but it's very similar. This is about 1500 to 1000 BCE, so we're talking about 200 to 5 to 600 years after Atrahasis that this is being done, but in the same sort of region,
Mm.
Babylonian. Um, Gilgamesh is this well-known historical figure at this point, right? Um, whether he was, whether these sort of stories were fictional or mythical, um, who this person was as a Sumerian king, whatever it is. There's all these legends that go into it, but this particular one that we're going to speak about comes from, I think, tablet 11, of one of many tablets that is found. And it's really like a story where you get to learn about the gods, you learn about the character, all these sort of things. And so, um, this is super cool. If you would read that first part of the Epic of Gilgamesh till the end of the page, there's going to be
Just that
some,
part? Okay.
yep, there's going to be some stuff that just throws out at you that one are awesome, but also should your signals should go off in terms of
Little bat
motival
signals.
adaptation, literary tropes. Go for it.
Spidey senses tingle.
Heck
I
yeah.
will I will reveal to you, Gilgamesh, a thing that is hidden, a secret of the gods I will tell you. Shuruppak, a city that you surely know, situated on the banks of the Euphrates, that city was very old, and there were gods inside it. The hearts of the great gods moved them to inflict the flood. Their father, Anu, uttered the oath of secrecy. Valiant Enlil was their advisor. Ninurta was their chamberlain and Nugi was their minister of canals. Ea, the clever prince, was under oath with them. So he repeated their talk to the reed house. Reed house, reed house, wall, wall. O Manashurapek, son of Ubartutu, tear down the house and build a boat. Abandon wealth and seek living beings. Spurn possessions and keep alive living beings. Make all living beings go up into the boat. The boat which you are to build, its dimensions must measure equal to each other. Its length must correspond to its width. Roof over it like the Apsu. The week brought whatever else was needed. On the fifth day, I laid out her exterior. It was a field in area. Its walls were each 10 times 12 cubits in height. The sides of its top were equal length, 10 times its cubits each. I laid out its interior structure and drew a picture of it.
Holy moly. Anything sounding familiar?
Actually, can I? This is kind of off topic, but I have a
Yeah.
question that just kind of I noticed. Is there something about secrets as well? Do they kind of have this little like, I have a secret to tell you, and here it is? Because I've seen this secret to reveal the
Yeah.
gods know. That's so freaking cool.
So
I just noticed that. Sorry.
yes, so no, it's don't be sorry. That's awesome thing to check out. So yes, remember that the whole Near Eastern idea is that gods are above human beings. So when gods decide to tell human beings this stuff, it's a godly secret. It's above their
Ah,
pay grade, right? And we do see some of that in Israelite culture, including, if you recall our episode on Sodom and Gomorrah, um, God is attempting to hide what he will do to Abraham,
From
right?
yeah,
To
yeah,
the cities,
exactly.
right? There's something about the gods have their own big plans, and if they choose to reveal it to the humans they've created, it's like getting into the club. It's a secret sort of tale that
Right.
they're being stepped into. So I think that's an
Mystery.
awesome element that you have pulled out of there, not just in terms of the flood motif, but also like Noah is one person who is chosen, as we'll see. The rest of it is hidden, right? Nobody else knows that the flood's coming, right?
Right.
And so usually our hero is told a secret that the gods,
He's a
there's a
pious
reason
guy.
for
He
it,
deserves to
right?
live, right?
Exactly, whatever it is, exactly. Um, Real quickly, if we go to the bottom of the next page, yep. So right there, when the seventh day arrived, again, seven, we're seeing seven,
So,
a lot. Okay, it's not something that we invented in Genesis 1. Okay, it was always there, and we just used it. So anyway,
right.
that's a great paragraph, and should awaken some spidey sense.
You want me to read that?
Yeah, please.
When a seventh day arrived, I sent forth a dove and released it. The dove went off, but came back to me. I sent forth a swallow and released it. The swallow went off, but came back to me. No perch was visible, so it circled back to me. I sent forth a raven and released it. The raven went off and saw the water slither back. It eats, it scratches, it bobs, but it does not circle back to me. Then I sent out everything in all directions and sacrificed a sheep. I offered incense in front of the mountain ziggurat. 7 and 7 cult vessels I put in place, and into the fire underneath or into their bowls I poured reed, cedar, and myrtle.
Wonderful.
Myrtle.
When you see little paragraphs or question marks or things like that, this is we don't want to say for sure that the translation is set on anything. So it's some things are idiomatic, some things are assumed, some things are, or it could mean this sort of thing. And so just like any other text that we're reading in translation, there's no one translation. So that's why you're seeing that. But anything pop out to you um, that you would see?
The doves.
Heck yeah. Can't miss
Now,
that.
what's interesting is that this is different each time he sends a different bird off.
Right. Right. How is that different?
I mean, well, I just mean like what is the purpose, I wonder, of sending, like, why does each animal do different? Well, obviously birds are different, but I mean,
Right.
do
The
doves fly
bird,
differently than a raven would is what I'm trying to ask.
that's a great question, right? Is um, his goal his goal is to see if there's land, right? So he sends
Mhm.
out a dove. The dove can't find land. The swallow can't find land, but the raven does, right? It doesn't
Mm.
come back because it finds a new home, right? And so ravens are very smart, but that's certainly one of the motival elements of how does the hero know that the flood is over
Mhm.
by sending a bird of some kind. That happens in Atrahasis. It happens here, and so that's sort of the trope that they're using here. But this is the first time that we're seeing more than one kind of bird, right? And then we're going to see that again very, very soon.
And then
But yes,
of course we got our lovely blood sacrifice.
yep. So
That's
we've got
that's
a
the same.
sacrifice, right? And there was a sacrifice at the end of Atrahasis as well, which we'll see.
Right.
Um, it happens on a mountain, right? Ziggurat is the mountain. And they're doing fire bowls and sacrifices, and incense, all very similar stuff to what was going on at the time. Hooray, the flood is over. I offer this to the gods as is my people's way.
Mm.
Uh, all that sort of stuff. And 7 and 7, right? All these sort of sevens, all that sort of
Got
stuff.
the 7 going. They love
Got the
that.
7 going on, right? Super
Got the
cool.
7.
So now that we have offered a little bit of older WAP. Let's do some
The
newer-ish
newest-ish.
WAP.
I don't know.
Younger WAP. And
There we go.
there we
Not
go.
too young.
Not too young, obviously. Legal.
Still pretty
600 to
old.
400 BCE. Still old. Okay.
Still very old WAP.
But that's going to be our familiar WAP. Okay. That's going to be the one that the WAP we grew up with. Okay. So that we've learned to love. All right.
You
That's
come
what
out
we,
of the WAP, you learn
that's right.
about the WAP.
Learn about the WAP. So here's what I will say first of all. Most people who have read the Noah story have not read the Noah story. They have not read the Noah story in the entirety. They have read a summary of it. They have read bits and pieces. A preschool kid can probably tell you the elements of the Noah story. But like anything that has gone through so many teaching styles and cultural things like that, you are missing things from the original text. And so one of the huge aspects that the scholars upon whose shoulders I stand have done is been able to separate the Noah story into actually two flood epics occurring at once that have been sort of hastily and not well put together. You typically are students, the average layperson have only heard the one part,
Yeah.
never the other part. And once you start to hear the other part, it's sort of like, I don't know that. So
I had no idea.
right, exactly. And why would you, right?
And I don't think I learned this until like maybe a year or two ago. So it wasn't even.
No, it's
So
not something that
I
you
was
would
out
know.
here deconstructing for a while and didn't realize there was two of the
Right.
stories.
Exactly. And that's what we are here to do. Now that is its own lesson. And if you guys would like me to do a lesson about the J author and the P author and all of that sort of stuff, and using the Noah story to do that, I can do that. But overall, the point here is that they are two different stories with two different kinds of elements. The flood is different amounts of time in one. The amount of animals is different. How God is addressed is different. And so you see it sort of all meshed together, so much so that if you were to read Genesis 6:5 all the way through, it does not make a great story because it keeps changing around, but you have been taught that it's a great story because you've only been given the cliff notes. And the cliff notes are always, a little simpler, but
Gotta read the whole story.
You got to read the whole story and you'll be just as confused, and it's wonderful.
You know what I noticed too, reading the story for this, just kind of studying up. I couldn't find the part where God told Noah to go tell people. I couldn't find that. Am I like losing my head? Or is that not in there? And that was that they're gonna die and they need to get on the boat. They better listen. Was that not a thing?
It's not really a thing. Yeah.
You guys, I thought I was losing my mind because we've always been taught that Noah had to go tell people, like, we have a big picture of it in my book of Bible stories, my book of horror stories, where Noah has to go tell the people and they're laughing in his face. Yeah, okay.
No, that's like fan fiction, sort of speak.
Mind blown.
Again, because the motival element is the secret, right? That only Noah's family knows about this. So in the story, it wouldn't make sense that he would go out and say, "Hey, all you evil people that God wants to destroy, he just gave me a big secret. Y'all should get on." That's not his job. His job is to save the animals and let everybody else die. That doesn't really work in Christian theology. So being pro-life
I'm so glad you made that clear to me. That is such an important awesome. Thank you for that. I
Sure.
can't wait to tell people about that.
Yeah.
I thought I was losing my mind. I was like, wait, where is it? Is it somewhere else? Is it in a different verse or something?
Nope. It's just
Not
not there.
there.
I
Okay.
love that it's your book of horror
Fan
stories,
fiction.
by the way. That's amazing.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I mean, that's if
Scary.
you read like curriculum and you see how stories are told, it is crazy. I mean, the whole idea of the Genesis fruit being the apple, all made up. It's not an
Right. Not
apple.
there.
This whole thing, right? It just goes on and on and on. So, so what I'm going to do is just very briefly, you can scroll down and you can see that there are two beautifully made parallel flood epics that two authors of two different times tried to sell. And when it came time to redact them, the redactor just pushed them together. It was an interesting choice. It happens,
Hey.
but this is why you need your horror book story, because if you were to read this, it would not literally make sense. So the Noah story, as it's written, does not make very good sense. And if you think it does, you've never read it.
Yeah.
Which happens a lot. As that happens a lot. You've never actually read it. You just have heard someone tell you the story so many times that you're like, I know the entire Noah story. Like, no, you really don't. So one of them has, um, the flood is 40 days. One of them has that the flood is 150 days. One says, 2 by 2, right? The pairs of all that sort of stuff. One has
Yeah.
7 pairs of
7.
each,
There's that
right?
7.
One has the dove. One has a raven. One has the uh, what's the thing?
Dove
Sacrifice at
Raven.
the end,
Oh,
right?
right. Yeah.
One doesn't, right? So what I've done is, if you go to the main page, now we're at 8:30. We got good time to just sort of dive into this. What I have created for you is
Go down to
this.
this
Yep,
part.
keep going. Yep, there we go. Right
Yeah,
here.
this is good.
This is a couple things. One, you will see um, all three elements, all three narratives synoptically put together, not
I
the
love
whole
that.
stories, right? Because not the whole aspects of a motif adaptation are relevant. What we're looking to do when we see motival elements of a motival cluster that we talked about is, on the far left, we have what my teachers have taught me to do, which is to label things as what's called literary stations. These are how we're going to categorize these literary tropes, these motival elements that are present in usually all three, but at least two. They're big enough so that you can say, when someone was taking this motif and adapting it, they had these elements and they did something with it. So real quickly, you can scroll down. We've got the destroyers, reason for the flood, the hero. We'll go through all this in detail, right? The announcement, the boat itself, who's on the boat, the mountain that exists there, the bird elements, right? The length of the flood, the sacrifice at the end, and the blessing. All of these occur in at least two. Mostly it occurs in all three. And this is how scholars set up and track motif adaptions. And so this is the gold standard for a worksheet of how this is done for you as a student to see things through the lens of motival adaptation. Like I said, it is not an exhaustive list of all the elements in each story. That's ridiculous, because we learned that in lesson 1 that we're only focusing on certain core elements of a motif.
Right.
Everything else they can go crazy with. One can be twice as long, one could be a few lines short, but these elements are present, and that's how we track motif adaptation. So, so if we look at the top, right, we see on the far left are our stations. Then you've got the Atrahasis, which is the epic from 1700 BCE, Gilgamesh, about 1000 BCE, and Noah, which is 600 to 400 BCE. So in length of order, left to right. Okay,
Gilgamesh is the Babylonian, and
Mhm.
Atrahasis is Akkadian. Is that
Is Mesopotamian.
Mesopotamian? Thank you.
Mesopotamian. Yep. Mhm.
Okay.
So yeah. So cuneiform would be of what is in Atrahasis, and Akkadian for Gilgamesh, and then Biblical Hebrew for Noah. Those are the things that they are written in.
Okay. Thank you.
So what we'll do is some of these are shorter and don't actually require a verse itself. They're just simply elemental aspects that are just there. And then there are some that we're going to read. Ryan, we'll have you read those three in a row so that we can start to do that. You're my reader tonight.
I'm a reader.
And then we'll go through them, okay? And we'll talk about conclusions at the end. But remember that at each beginning of the story, Ryan, as you pointed out, right, there's a group or in the Noah story, depending on which one you read, there's one God, right? Or Elohim, which is plural, so maybe it's more in the pantheon there. But either way, there's higher beings that are set to destroy the world. That's the goal. Who are the destroyers? They are literally both called the great gods in Atrahasis and Gilgamesh. That's how they were referred to. If you read the cuneiform and the Akkadian and the translation, they'll say the great gods talked to blah, 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 and the great gods did this, or whatever it is. They are not, Yahweh or Elohim are not introduced that way because these sort of, it's not epic poetry, it's more prose. That is one big difference, by the way, is that the Noah story is prose, whereas the first two are epic poetry. And so that is a little bit, that's a different sort of move by the motival adapter for the Noah story. There is epic poetry in the Bible, as we know, certainly in the Torah. And so we've seen that before, but this one has been turned into prose. As you said, right, there's a hero that the gods or God decide to whisper or tell the secret to. You're the one who's going to know what to do when we do this. There is a purpose to that, right? The reasons for the flood are somewhat given in all three, and if we look at the evolution of the reasons for the flood, it takes a hard turn when the Israelite myth comes to light, right? In Atrahasis, the problem is overpopulation. They just want to flood it out.
Too damn loud. Shut up.
Yeah, exactly. They're too loud. The gods are annoyed. They can't sleep. And so they need to wipe out some of them, right? Gilgamesh's story, it's unclear. Something emotional, the heart of the great gods moved them to do this. So there's something perhaps in a idiomatic expression that we didn't know, but the readers of Gilgamesh would have known. Perhaps it's similar to moral depravity or upset about human rights, but we can't really say that one way or the other. But we do know that when we get to Noah, the reason is that God regrets creating humanity. There's wickedness on earth, and God wants to start over completely. That's the reason that's given.
He's like, y'all dumbasses been bad since you were young. God damn it.
Exactly. So he's like, we're just going to do a reset button on that. So, indeed. So, I have not yet been in a comfortable spot in life to buy a fish tank for myself. But once I do, these are the names of the fish that I'm going to give them.
Oh, I love it.
Atrahasis, Utnapishtim, and
you better.
Noah. I've been thinking about this for years, and I just have not been at a point in my life comfortable where I've been able to say, like, I can take care
And
of
you got to
fish.
have a Job, maybe a Job, just
Right.
like for
Maybe,
funsies.
or a Jonah or whatever.
Oh, Jonah, that's what I meant, not
Yeah.
Job. Duh. Derp.
I mean, listen, if there's a fish that you want to poke at, get a Job. That's fine.
Aw,
See how he does,
he
just
deserves
for
it.
fun. Yeah, he probably deserves it. So these are the heroes of the story, right? Atrahasis, Utnapishtim, and Noach. These are your heroes.
Blameless
Um,
men.
well,
Well,
maybe,
maybe
maybe
not
not,
blameless, but
right?
for whatever
For
reason,
some
they were
reason,
chosen.
they are chosen, right? Whether it be, as we're told in Noach, that whatever it means to walk with God, they're righteous, whatever, or they're just, good people, and or random. We don't really know, but in other words, this motival element, by the way, is one that if you open up the Torah this way and you start to read some of these stories, and you just take out the main character's name, instead of using like one of our like biblical names that we know, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, whatever it is, if you rip out that name, some of those stories you can just see like put in a Mesopotamian name and you're like, this is not ours. Like they just changed the name to Jacob or something. Like it's very, very clear that you can do that. So the hero's name is one of those major things that you can see and be like, this is, and typically it means something, right? Noach meant something. They're going to name Noach that. It means like peaceful, restful, whatever it is. Atrahasis, Utnapishtim, they're chosen for a reason.
Right.
There's a
I
reason
wrote
for that.
down what Atrahasis meant, but I can't remember
Right.
now.
Right. I don't remember either, but
Good
they
job.
have meanings behind them. Right. Exactly.
Exceedingly wise.
There you
Exceedingly
go.
wise.
There
There
you
we
go.
go.
So is it the wise person? Is it the righteous person? Whatever it is. So here we get into, those are sort of the big sort of blocks of, these are the big motive elements. Now when we get into the actual verses, where you can see bit by bit how they are done. So if you go up to
Sorry, did
the
I go down too
announcement,
far?
you did the announcement of the
Oh,
flood.
there
There
we
it is.
go.
There is at a certain point in each story an announcement that this is going to happen. So will you read, Ryan, left to right columns, Atrahasis, Gilgamesh, Noah 1 and 2?
Gotcha. Okay, so the announcement for Atrahasis, and Lil opened his mouth to speak and address the assembly of all the gods. Come now, let us all take an oath to bring a flood. For
Okay.
Utnapishtim, I will reveal to you, Gilgamesh, a thing that is hidden, a secret of the gods, I will tell you. And yeah, that is a dream. For Noah, I have decided to put an end to all flesh, for the earth is filled with lawlessness because of them. I am about to destroy them with the earth. And then for that is the J, I will blot out
Right.
from the earth the men whom I created, men together with beasts, creeping things, and birds of the sky, for I regret that I made them. Like, dude regretted even the animals.
Right.
Like he
Exactly.
wanted them gone.
Very
Like
different
everything.
than, right.
Very
So
different.
when you read those Noah stories together, you're like, wait a minute, which is it? Because creeping things are not lawless. So so one God wanted to destroy men because of lawlessness, and one said, I regret all of this altogether. This whole thing has just started all
That's
over.
just, yeah, I just
That's just,
don't want to remember.
exactly. Okay, here's where it gets really fun. If we talk about the boat, one of the main motiva elements is that the way that the family or the hero survives is a boat of some kind. And if you read these verses, you're going to get to the Noah part and you're going to be like, what the hell, man? That's just ripping us off. So there you go.
All right. The boat that you are to build shall be roofed with sturdy covering like the apsu to prevent Shamash seeing inside it. That's the sun god. Have it
That's
roofed
right.
both over and under. The tackle must be very strong. And then for Utnapishtim, 1 acre was its whole floor space, 10 dozen cubits, the height of each wall, 10 dozen cubits its deck, square on each side. I laid out the contours, drew it all. I gave it 6 decks and divided it thus into 7 parts.
Mhm.
All right, Noah, This is how you shall make it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, its width 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits.
So remember
Like,
when
I'm gonna make it
Ken,
easy.
what's his fake, made the ark and was like, "I've got the
Oh,
dimensions" or whatever it is?
Hovind.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's not new. They make the idea that there's a motival element of, I'm going to show you how to make the boat. I'm even going to let you measure it in terms of the same measuring of cubits, right? Of this is how much it is, whatever it is, how many decks it has, um, put a covering over it, put a roof over it so that the sun god doesn't see you, or in our sort of story, it's just put a covering on because the boat needs a top.
You don't want water to get in there, you know?
Right. Also, right. And you'll notice, right, that there isn't some elements of the boat that is necessary for to be explicitly mentioned in the Noah story because it's already mentioned in the other elements, right? I'm not even, if I go up to the, you don't have to do that, but give me 1 second here. If I go up to the boat part up here, I want
Noah.
to see if they talk about the roof. Making it up. Yeah. So look, Genesis 6:16. This is Noah. Make an opening for daylight in the ark and terminate it with a cubit at the top. Put the entrance on the ark on the side. Make it with bottom, second, and third decks. In other words, like, this also has an opening, but they don't know why it had an opening. The reason the boat had an opening and needed to be covered was because so that the sun god didn't get in and see them. The motiva element has now moved over, but since they don't have a sun god, but they like the idea that it's got an opening, they kept the opening, but they lost the reason. Right?
That's really cool. Yeah.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
So
just yoinked Shamash out of there. Yoink.
That's right. And
Don't need
just for
you.
my Hebrew peeps, yes, Shamash is the Mesopotamian sun god. The word for sun in Hebrew is Shemesh. So, yeah,
There you have it.
Not original. So you've got a boat. You've got how many cubits it is. You've got a roof. You've got an opening. You've got a sun roof or whatever.
Just
all
some
that,
roof on a boat.
And then a covering for it. All of that stuff. Okay.
Well, you can't get W.A.P unless you have a sunroof. No
That's
women
right.
are going to come on your boat if you don't at least have a sunroof.
You got
Come
a
on.
pasty white ark. No way.
Nobody's going to come
Nobody
on that.
messes
They're
with
not going to
that.
come within 50 cubits
Nope,
of
not
that
50
ark.
cubits of you, dude. That's right. No way.
Oh, dear.
So, okay, let's go to passengers on the boat.
Passengers on the boat, yes.
All right. And by the way, I'd like our friends in the audience to pay very close attention to the Noah stories, because one you've heard of and one you haven't, on purpose. Okay, go ahead.
Enter the boat and close the door of the boat. Send up into it creatures of the plains, all the wild creatures that eat grass, I'll send to you, and they will wait at your door.
Isn't that nice that he doesn't have to go get them, right?
Yeah,
They're just
that's
like,
different.
I will deliver them, and they'll just not. It's like door dashing the animals, right?
Boop, boop,
Isn't that
boop,
so much
boop.
nicer?
Hello,
He'll wait
Christ.
for you at the door. I'll take care of that. Yeah.
Thank you. Just send them over with the Uber.
Yeah, exactly.
Load the seed of every living thing into your ark, the boat that you will build. Okay, that was
Yes,
pretty
the word is ark.
simple.
Yes, ark.
Wow, there wasn't a one-of-a-kind ark. That's kind of surprising.
No, not one of a kind.
All right, so
hit me with
here
some
is this is the P, right? The priestly.
right.
And of all that lives, of all flesh, you shall take 2 of each into the ark to keep alive with you. They shall be male and female, from birds of every kind, cattle of every kind of creeping thing on earth. 2 of each shall come to you to stay alive.
2.
Oh.
Okay.
Now these says it shall come to you.
Yep. They're just gonna come to you. It's fine. You don't even go out and get it. Yeah. No, I didn't have to go out and get 2 mosquitoes. Yeah. No, man.
With a little net.
You didn't have to do that. They were
All right.
delivering.
Of every clean animal, you shall take 7 pairs, males and their mates, and of every animal that is not clean, 2, a male and its mate. Of the birds of the sky also 7 pairs, male and female, to keep the seed alive upon all of the earth.
Yes, both of these sections exist in the same story, very close to one
Wowsies.
another.
Huh.
Literally different instructions in the same story.
Very different instructions.
Just
Which one am
letting
I
you know.
supposed to, which one goes above, like, which one's more important than the other
Right.
one?
Obviously, the 2x2, because we heard the song, right? 2x2 or whatever it is. Get out of the muddy, or whatever it is, right? The 7 pairs is actually more in terms of following the clean, unclean, that sort of stuff. You'll see that it has something to do with purity, has something to do with what's clean, what's not clean. It's not just any other creatures. It brings in the 7 again, the 7 we saw borrowed from these other motival elements as well. So you can see that one of these authors looked to some of these motival elements and said, yes, I'm going to use them. Another author said, no, I'm going to use these. I'm going to do 2x2, male and female, just because that's our story, right? And then when you push together, it all gets ridiculous.
Moosh. Mooshy.
Yeah. Yes. Mushy, right.
The technical term.
It is. I actually made a mistake here. I think there is a mountain that is mentioned in Atrahasis. We talked about it. It was called Mount Zuggurat.
Ziggurat, yeah.
Right. So I apologize that that's an empty space. That should not be an empty space. So the mountain part, which I won't make you read. You stay right there. I will get to it. So you don't have to. Zuggurat.
Look at that ziggurat. I didn't know. So does ziggurat mean mountain? Or
here we go. I offered incense in front of the mountain, Ziggurat. It was just the name of it. So this comes from Atrahasis, but it's mentioned later. I don't think it's mentioned. Oh, here we go. Yeah. The land shattered like a pot all day long. South wind blew, blowing fast, submerging the mountain in water. Right. It's all about mountain. Right. Mountains, by the way, are where gods used to live.
yes.
In Near Eastern legends. So anyway, we see later in Atrahasis that in front of that mountain, Zuggurat, is where they're going to do their Atrahasis is going to do his sacrifice, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But we've got 2 other mountains that occur in Gilgamesh and Noah, which you can read.
On Mount Nemush, the boat lodged firm. Mount Nemush held the boat, allowing no sway. So that in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat.
In other words, this is where the boat stalls on a mountain, right? Gilgamesh and Utnapishtim stops on Mount Nemush. And again, 7th month, 7th, like again, you guys seeing this? 7, 7, 7. The ark rests on the mountains of Ararat. So for all those people who are like, we think we found where Mount Ararat is. No, you didn't. Okay.
Oh, God.
And there's Mount Zuggurat.
You can still see the ark.
Okay.
Stop it. You need to stop telling people that they can't see the ark. I've seen it myself.
I know. And my favorite part
Looks
about
just
that
like a
whole
boat
story is that it completely failed because most people who are, how we say, biblical literalists near Kentucky are not particularly well off. And so they can only afford to go once. And so once everyone who believed that went, there were no more people who wanted to go. And so it went bankrupt. My favorite reason for something to go bankrupt is there's just not
hilarious.
enough people. So
wow, I would think there'd be an abundance.
It's not as many as you'd think who'd want to actually go see Adam riding a dinosaur. It's not as many as you think.
Well, I'm happy about that. That's a good thing.
So the birds. There is not a bird element in Atrahasis. However, if you look closely at Gilgamesh and Noah, you will see exactly where this comes from. Yeah.
There's no bird element in Atrahasis. So is it because we don't, does he mention about
Doesn't
the
mention a
boat?
bird.
Oh,
Um,
hmm.
and perhaps it's one of those pieces that we haven't seen, or perhaps it was a new motival element that Gilgamesh introduced, and
Ooh,
Noah liked, right? Um,
ooh,
that happens also.
interesting.
That
Right.
happens also. Mhm.
Do you want
So
me to
if you want
read
to read
this,
Gilgamesh, yep,
birds?
yep.
Okay, so for Gilgamesh, when a seventh day arrived, I sent forth a dove and released it. The dove went off, but came back to me. No perch was visible, so it circled back to me. I sent forth a swallow and released it. The swallow went off, but came back to me. No perch was visible, so it circled back to me. I sent forth a raven and released it. The raven went off and saw the waters slither back. For
Okay.
Noah, do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Sent out the raven. It went out to and fro until the waters had dried up from the earth. Then he sent
Mhm.
out the dove to see whether the waters had decreased from the surface of the ground.
Again, these two elements exist side by side in one story, but as you can see, one author of Noah took basically the raven part.
Like the
The
raven.
raven goes around
It's a little
until
Poe.
he sees the right until he sees the waters slither back or it dries up from the earth. The other author takes the dove and says, "Forget the raven. I'm going to put a dove in."
Mm.
He went out to the dove, and that's where you get the dove with the branch and the all that crap, right?
Yep.
But all of that's irrelevant because the raven has already proven that the waters have dried up.
Mm-hmm.
So again, if you read the whole Noah story, you're like, why is he sending out a freaking dove? We
Right. Why
figured
are
it
they
out.
going back again to say the
Right.
same
But when you
things?
see it next to Gilgamesh, you can see the choices that the author made in terms of saying, I like this element. No, I like this element. And that's really a beautiful aspect of motival adaptation that you're seeing from motival clusters, saying, I'm going to go in this way. I'm going to go this way from a single source.
Mm.
That's a great example of that.
It is beautiful. It's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful to see how it was adapted and what they just chose to keep and chose
I
to
know.
toss, and just that simple.
That's
And
what I'm saying, man.
here we are sweating it. And they're like, I'm just gonna erase that.
Right?
Screw that. I'll just put some more clay back in there. Yeah, we
What
just
I'm
gonna erase
saying.
that.
What I'm saying, dude.
Yeah. Just like
Um,
that.
just like that. All right, length of the flood. I know we're running out of time, but length of flood. This is actually really cool. If you read these three, these are like. And by the way, I did the math for you in the Noah stuff, in case you wanted
Oh,
to
I
know the
see
math.
that. Oh
Yeah,
wow, good.
yeah. All
Oh
right, go
wow.
for it. That's awesome.
Let me read it. Okay, so for
Okay.
7 days and 7 nights, the deluge, storm, and flood went on.
7, 7.
When a
Yep.
7 7, and then on Gilgamesh, when a seventh day arrived,
7.
and he 7 7, here comes Noah. For in 7 days' time, I
7.
will make it rain upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. Okay, so if we got 40 plus 4 birds and 3 successive periods of 7 days equals 7 days equals 61.
Yeah. So if you think that the flood lasted 40 days, you haven't read it. It's actually 61 days. But the point of that really is that the author took the 7 days and not this is how long the flood is going to be. They took it as in 7 days, I'm going to do this. And one
Right.
of the things that we will look at in terms of literary trope is how much is 3 days, how much is 40 days, how much, whatever it is. 40 days in biblical literature is typically a long time. It doesn't actually mean 40
Necessarily
days,
40 days.
right?
Okay.
It's just like that's a long day. 3 days is a very small amount of time. 7 days is a medium amount of time. 40
Mm.
days is a long amount of time. And you will see these
And
used up.
And couldn't the same also be said just about the size of the boat? It might not have been 50 cubits. It might have
What?
just been like, okay, it was actually, I don't even know what a cubit is. It was actually a
Right.
10 cubits by 10 cubits, but like that sounds big to give people the idea like, oh, this was monumental. This would have
Right.
taken him a long time, a lot of
Exactly.
faith, a lot of work. Da,
Absolutely.
da, da. Okay.
Right.
I could,
If you stop
okay.
taking it literally and you start to recognize numbers, right, in terms of, that's a thing to me,
That
you
makes
realize
a
that
lot
they
of
didn't
sense.
actually wander the desert in 40 years. They wandered the desert for a long frickin'
A
time. And
long
that's all.
time.
That's
Oh,
it. That's all you wanted to do,
perfect.
right?
Yes,
And no, it
that
didn't
adds
actually
up.
take 7 days for God to create the world. 7, as you can see, has a very mystical, godly aspect to that number, which you would know if you read the other Near Eastern legends.
Shh, it's a
So
secret. It's
it
a
is.
secret.
Okay, so that was one part of the Noah story. If you get to the other part, here's the other aspects of the Noah story about the length of the flood.
In
Go
the
for it.
600th year of Noah's life, in the second month, on the 17th day of the month, on that day, all the fountains of the great deep burst apart, and the floodgates of the sky broke open. Yeah, because they thought that the sky actually had frickin' floodgates and there was water up there chilling.
Right?
Okay.
And so they
In
needed to know the exact day, right? Someone wrote down it's the second month of the 17th day. No, that's going to be used later. Okay. That's the day it happened, right? It's not like someone was like, when did the flood start? Oh, it is the 17th day. Fascinating. I'm going to die.
Whoa.
It's not, right? That's not how it happens, right? And then you read on.
In the 601st year, in the first month, on the first of the month, the waters began to dry from the earth.
So
1 year and
if you
11
look
days.
at, right, if you look at um, when it starts in the Hebrew calendar, right? From the second month of the 17th day to the first month, right? Then you can say, it's a year and 11 days. This is, that's how long it is. Okay. So it's not 40 days. Okay. It's 100, 1 year and 11 days. Okay. So that's again,
That's a
same
big
story,
difference.
same
And again,
story.
like, does it
Yep.
really matter? Because we know that now that it's just supposed to mean it was
A
raining
long
for a
time.
long ass
It
time,
was a long
right?
time because,
Now I get that. It wasn't necessarily
right.
important to remember the exact amount, just
Just
it
it
was
was a
long.
while, right?
It was a while.
There's meaning in terms of what they were trying to do, and remember that the flood only lasted a week in both of these two Near Eastern legends, right? In Atrahasis and Gilgamesh, it only lasted a week. This is a long time
That's a
for flood.
law. Well,
61 days,
he
100
did
days,
say he wanted
right?
everything dead, and that would I mean, everything would be dead, even fish would be dead after that much
Right?
rain.
All
So
that
I
much. That's what I'm saying. So
he got his wish.
yeah. So that was a direction that the Noah authors decided to be like, screw 7 days. We're gonna make this rain like a motherfucker. And
They
yeah,
wanted to make it
exactly.
really wop.
That's right. It really whopped out.
It
So
whopped. Whop
all
it
right, we've
up.
got two more elements here, and then we
Hang
have
in
to
there, guys.
end,
Hang in.
unfortunately. Okay, the sacrifice. At the end
The
of each flood, there's a sacrifice to the gods. Let's read them.
The gods sniffed the fragrance and gathered like flies over the offering. After they had eaten up the offering, oh, they liked it. The gods
Yep.
smelled the savor. The gods smelled the sweet savor and collected the flies over a sheep sacrifice. Then Noah built an altar to Yahweh, and taking care of every clean animal and every clean bird, he offered burnt offerings on the altar. Yahweh smelled the pleasing odor.
And this, by the
Mm.
way, goes into a huge conversation as to what sacrifice is for, right? A mystical element was one that the gods are hungry, they're going to eat it, or that they just love the smell of fried chicken and they're just like, good stuff, guys, loving it, loving the odor. Um,
Mm.
and you can see both the Atrahasis and Gilgamesh, they gather like flies, right? They're like, ooh, something smells good,
Yeah, like a mob.
and Yahweh is given a little bit more, I don't know, decorum in terms of
Right.
just smells the odor
He
and he's
has a
like,
little
good
manners.
job,
He's
Noah.
like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's delicious. You're cooking something?
Yes.
Thank
Hey,
you.
that's very, very nice of you. Very nice of you to do that.
How kind."
Taking it in. I smell clean animals of every kind. Wonderful.
Right.
Uh, yes. So yes, the sacrifice at the end is obviously it is meaningful in terms of you have saved this hero. The hero has accomplished their task, and to please the gods or God here, the hero offers a sacrifice and says, "I did what you wanted, and here's a little bit of odor for you. Hooray. And then the final gift that is provided by the gods is a blessing. So we read these three. Go for it.
Okay, we sent the flood, but a human survived the destruction. You are the governor of the gods. On your orders, I created strife. For your praise, I let the Igigi deities hear this song and extol your greatness together.
In other words,
And look,
you the man.
right? Yeah,
You
like,
made it.
ooh.
You did it. You're the
So Enlil
survivor.
came up to the ark. He seized my hand and picked me up. He raised my wife up, making her kneel at my side. He touched our foreheads, and standing between us, he blessed us.
I
Wow.
knight thee, Utnapishtim and wife. You have
And
finished
he
the flood.
touched them. This God
Yeah,
actually touched them.
right?
That's
That's what I'm talking
wow.
about.
Okay.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
going. Are we going to get some Nephilim?
yeah, right,
Elohim blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, "Be fertile and increase and fill the earth."
right. And then you can go into the rainbow crap or whatever, but that's not really a blessing.
Oh,
That's a
right. Yes,
that's a
the
promise
bow and
that I'll never
stuff.
do it again. But that's not really the blessing, right? The blessing is Elohim blessed Noah and his son, meaning that once the hero has accomplished their task and has been thankful and done their sacrifice, they receive a blessing from the god, being that you are now of higher status, right? Atrahasis says,
Mhm.
you've survived destruction. You're the governor of the gods. You're awesome, right? Gilgamesh, Utnapishtim is actually pulled up into the realm, right? And touched by the gods, right? Show me where he touched you, right? On the forehead. Um, and and then Elohim, whether that's plural or you want to believe whatever, blesses Noah and his sons, saying, "You guys, it's on you now. Go be fertile and increase and fill the earth. This is going to be your world now." Right? Very similar to Atrahasis. You're the governor of the gods. You've survived destruction. Noah is told, your family line is going to rule the world now. It's all going to come from your family line.
You
So
special.
yeah, exactly. So in an hour and 8 minutes, we have gone through three epic flood motifs, three
That
WAPs.
was you did good. That was
Thank
a
you.
lot of whopping. Are
It's
you
a lot of
tired
WAP.
from all that whopping?
I'm always tired
My
after
fingers are a little
three
prunish,
WAPs. Yes, I'm always
especially in a
tired.
row.
Right.
Like
I mean,
we didn't even
I'm in
come
my
up for
40s
air.
here. Okay, let's
Me too.
uh, yeah.
We need a
So let's
break. I need a cigarette after
we
all
need
this
it
whopping.
exactly like that was sublime. Um,
That was some
so
good whop.
So it is my hope that we have accomplished, um, at the very least, shown that the Noah stories are not original, that their motival intertextual friends predated them, um, perhaps by a millennia almost, or half a millennia. Um, and at the very most, it's my hope that we have now reinforced again this incredibly trackable and beautiful and cool tool of motif adaptation, right? We did it in
Oh
the
yeah.
beginning of lesson one of here's what it is. Last time we did it, here's the tree of life. You can follow it. Here we did it with the flood, and we're going to keep doing it using these tools so that our audience and each other, right, can start to get used to when you start to see things on your own, when you're reading things not with us, you can say, hey, that reminds me of blank. Not a coincidence, not deja vu. You are reading a literary trope that reminds you of something, probably because it
Yeah.
came from that
Yeah.
something. And that is the cool part.
Absolutely. It's like this little memory that's like, oh, hey, wait a
Mhm.
minute. And as we were reading, there's something else that kind of popped into my head with how you were saying at the end, they have the sacrifice. And I
Right?
noticed in a lot of the Ugaritic, which I love, obviously,
Yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of those epics, they make it a very important part to make sure that after you've gotten this gift, this bow from the gods, you better make sure that every time you kill an animal, like you're sacrificing and thanking. Like there's
Right.
always seems to be this. I don't know if it's a thank you. I don't know if I would say Noah was thanking God after getting off the boat and burning. I'm not sure
It's
exactly
hard
what
to
that's.
say. There's a
Yeah.
huge el- um, a huge argument as to what sacrifice does. And is it
Mm.
to thank God? Is it to feed God? Is it to please God? Um, you know, and then we'll talk about this in another another session. But there are literally within the Bible itself, there's elements like Psalm 50 where they try to change it completely. Where God says, one of my favorite Psalms, God says, "You think I'm hungry?" Like when you're sacrificing. And he goes, if I was hungry, I wouldn't ask you. I own all this stuff.
Oh.
It's an incredible
Oh, we
psalm.
have to go over that. I need
So
to know that.
the argument of what the sacrifice is for continues all the way through to the Psalms, where people have
Oh,
decided, no,
that's
that
so
makes no
cool.
sense. They just like the odor, or gods don't eat, or
Yeah.
why would God want to eat something that God created and could just eat whenever? Like, it's a whole argument. And so we don't have the answer here in terms of why did Noah make a burnt offering there? Why did Atrahasis and Unapishtim do that? They did it for their own different reasons. They smelled the odor is the motival aspect, right? That
Mhm.
was taken from one to the other. The god smells the pleasing odor, but that's all we know, right? Because for some reason in Atrahasis in 1700 BCE, that's why you sacrificed, right? Gods like the odor. Because this is a Genesis story, you start to see people build off that and be like, I don't agree with this author's reason for sacrifice. Let me try something else. Super, super cool lesson that we can do another time.
Yeah, right. We've gotten a little over time, but I think we
Yep.
did well. We've learned a lot. We got to compare 3 WAPs, and there's so many more WAPs that we could have
So many more.
mentioned, but
These are the three
we
big,
just
the best WAP. Yeah,
the biggest WAPs, I would say. I think Gilgamesh probably
that's
has one of
right.
the biggest WAPs I've ever
Right.
read.
Big WAP.
So
Yeah.
so I hope that our audience got a little wet from our chat,
Yeah.
a little more understanding about how to recognize these different tropes and motifs. I feel like now I'm starting to, I mean, I don't know, but I just feel like a
Little by
little more
little,
things are
you're going to
little by
start to do
little.
it, right? And that's why it's
Yeah.
only episode 3, guys. Believe me, by the 6th episode or 10th episode, you're going to be like, hey, I knew that. And that's the point, is we're easing you into this idea. It's okay if you didn't see it. It's okay that you don't see it right away. You are learning a new skill, which you should have learned before you opened up the Bible, but we're not given that chance. So we're going to teach you these skills slowly, let you ease into them so that the next time you open up your Bible, you have tools in your toolbox, thanks to Ryan and Rabbi Mike. Let's get you home. It's
All
late
right.
on Sunday.
Thank you all. Have a great weekend. Enjoy your holiday. Rabbi Mike, you enjoy the rest of your holiday if you get to have one for
Mhm.
your job. But everybody
Right.
else, we love you. Thanks for joining us. We're going to see you next week, same time. And we're out of here. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you. That's some
Peace
WAP.
out. See ya.